want you to think back to the last time you felt that spark, that sudden electric jolt when you meet someone who just gets it. We've been told for decades that this feeling is the compass, that if the chemistry is high enough, the rest will just figure itself out. But have you ever noticed how many of those firework relationships end in a silent house? Or how the person who felt like the one on Tuesday feels like a stranger by Sunday? Maybe the problem isn't your heart. Maybe it's the map you're using to find people. We've been taught to look for soulmates when we should have been looking at personality data. Today, we're going to look at what the research actually says about who you should be with, and it's probably not who you think. In psychology, there is a concept known as assortative mating. It's the scientific observation that we aren't actually looking for a puzzle piece that is different from us. Statistically, we are looking for a mirror. Research shows that we are overwhelmingly drawn to people who share our socioeconomic background, level of education, and even physical attractiveness. This is the similarity attraction effect. The old cliche that opposites attract might work for a weekend fling or a magnetic first date. But when it comes to long-term stability, the opposite part of the equation usually becomes a source of friction, not fulfillment. Data suggests that the more similar a couple is in their core personality domains, the less maintenance the relationship requires. Think of it as cognitive efficiency. When you and your partner process the world through a similar lens, you don't have to translate your reality to each other every single day. You aren't looking for someone to complete you. You're looking for someone whose internal map of the world matches your own. Imagine a couple, Sarah and Mark. On paper, they are the perfect match. They both love hiking, they both want 3 kids, and they both enjoy quiet Sunday mornings. But inside the house, it feels like they're speaking 2 different languages. Sarah is a planner. She needs the kitchen counters clear before she can relax. Mark is a perceiver. He doesn't see the mess. He sees a half-finished project that he'll get back to you eventually. To Sarah, Mark's mess feels like a lack of respect. To Mark, Sarah's cleaning feels like a lack of freedom. In with the authority of a newscaster. They're fighting about the fundamental way their brains are wired to prioritize order and spontaneity. This is the hidden friction of personality. It's the reason why sharing interests is rarely enough to sustain a life together. Because you don't live in your interests, you live in your habits. To understand why Sarah and Mark are struggling, we have to look at the 5-factor model, or the Big Five. This is the gold standard of personality research because it measures traits that remain remarkably stable throughout your adult life. When we talk about who you should be looking for, we're really talking about how your scores on these 5 traits align with theirs. First, there's conscientiousness. This is your level of order and duty. In the story of Sarah and Mark, this was the primary friction point. If one partner is in the 90th percentile and the other is in the 10th, you aren't just roommates with different habits, you are living in 2 different versions of physical reality. Then we have agreeableness. This is the single best predictor of relationship transformation. High agreeableness means a person is wired for cooperation and empathy. Low agreeableness means they are wired for competition and skepticism. Research suggests that having at least one high agreeable partner is like having social lubricant for the relationship. It prevents small frictions from turning into massive fires. Finally, there is neuroticism, or emotional stability. This is the threat detection system of the brain. A partner high in neuroticism will perceive a late text or short tone of voice as a sign of catastrophe. Compatibility isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose trait profile doesn't constantly trigger your own threat sensors. Think about that feeling when you send a text and see the red receipt, but no dots appear. For most people, it's a minor annoyance. But for someone high in neuroticism, those 3 minutes of silence aren't just silence. They are a mounting evidence file that something is wrong. Did I say something? Are they pulling away? Is this the beginning of the end? It's an internal siren that never quite shuts off. Now, imagine that person is dating someone who is low agreeable and low conscientiousness. The partner doesn't text back because they forgot their phone in the car, and they don't see why it's a big deal to explain themselves later. To one person, it's a forgetful mistake. To the other, it's emotional abandonment. This is why understanding these traits matters. When you don't know the code your partner is running on, you interpret their personality as a personal attack. You start to believe they don't care, when the reality is their brain just isn't wired to scan for threats the way yours is. There is a common misconception that compatibility means being the same person, but research into value alignment suggests something more nuanced. While your personality traits are like the hardware of your brain, your values are the software. You can have a partner who is an extrovert while you are an introvert. This is a difference in hardware. As long as you both value growth or family or autonomy, you can usually negotiate the hardware gap. However, when the values are mismatched, even the most similar personality traits can't save the relationship. One study found that value similarity is a much stronger predictor of long-term stability than interest similarity. Sharing a love for 90s cinema or Thai food is a low-stakes similarity. Sharing a belief in how money should be spent or how children should be raised is high stakes. If you are looking for a partner, stop auditing their hobbies, start auditing their North Star. Because when life gets difficult, and it will, you don't need someone who likes the same movies as you. You need someone who wants to move in the same direction. We've all seen the movie version of love. The across-the-room gaze, the rain-soaked confession, the feeling that the universe has finally aligned. But I want to tell you about a different kind of story. It's the story of a couple who, on their first date, felt fine. There were no violins. There were no breathless phone calls until 4 a.m. Just two people who realized they both valued reliability, both had a similar sense of humor, and both were moderately high in conscientiousness. They didn't fall in love. They built it. They focused on the boring stuff, how they handled a flat tire, how they spoke to waiters, how they supported each other through a bad flu. Over 10 years, that fine first date turned into a foundation that no storm could shake. Because while passion is the fuel that starts the engine, personality is the steering wheel that keeps you on the road. Sometimes the person you should be looking for isn't the one who takes your breath away. It's the one who helps you breathe easier. Beyond personality traits, we have to look at the emotional glue of a relationship, attachment theory. If the big five is your hardware, attachment theory is your communication protocol. It describes how you respond to intimacy and perceived threats to that intimacy. There are 3 primary styles you'll encounter in the dating world. Secure. These individuals are comfortable with intimacy and aren't overly worried about rejection. They are the stabilizers. Anxious. These people crave closeness, but are often hypersensitive to signs of pullback. They need frequent reassurance. Avoidant. These individuals equate intimacy with a loss of independence. When things get too close, they instinctively retreat. The anxious avoidant trap is one of the most common reasons high compatibility couples fail. The anxious partner feels a distance and pushes for closeness. The avoidant partner feels that push as a threat and pulls away further. It becomes a self-fulfilling cycle of stress. When you are looking for a partner, you aren't just looking for someone you like. You're looking for an attachment system that complements your own. While 2 secures are the gold standard, an anxious person can find peace, but usually only with someone who is willing to provide the consistent, transparent communication that lowers their threat response. Eventually, the honeymoon phase ends for everyone. The spark that felt like magic becomes a memory. And in that moment, you're left with the person sitting across from you. If you chose them because they were exciting or because they challenged you, you might find that those same qualities now feel exhausting. But if you chose them because their hardware matches yours, if you chose them because their conscientiousness means they'll actually do what they say they'll do, then you realize something profound. Love isn't a mystery that happens to you. It's a deliberate construction project. Looking for a partner isn't about finding a missing half. It's about finding a co-author who wants to write the same kind of story as you. Someone whose presence doesn't just complete your life, but makes the reality of living it feel more manageable. If you are currently looking for a partner or evaluating a current relationship, you need a way to translate this research into a checklist. Based on the meta-analysis of personality and relationship satisfaction, here are the 3 green flags of high compatibility hardware. High agreeableness. This is non-negotiable for a low-stress life. You want someone who defaults to, how can we solve this together, rather than, how can I win this argument? Low to moderate neuroticism. While we all have anxieties, a partner who is emotionally stable provides a secure base. It prevents the relationship from feeling like a constant roller coaster of crisis management. Conscientiousness match. You don't both need to be perfectionists, but you need to be in the same ballpark. If one person lives by a schedule and the other lives by vibes, the daily friction will eventually erode the emotional connection. Stop asking, do they make me laugh? And start asking, how do they handle a mistake? Stop asking, are they exciting? And start asking, are they consistent? The research is clear. The perfect match isn't someone who completes your soul. It's someone whose personality traits allow your soul to finally rest.